Hi everybody and welcome to the summary for week 1 of the Pantry Challenge. I think we've done pretty well this week.
We have. We've eaten a lot of good stuff this week.
I've learned some lessons, found some gaps in our food storage, but also realized how blessed we are with what we've been able to set aside through the year and then to make menus and recipes out of. One of the things that I did not take into account as much as I should have was lunch foods. Often we just eat leftovers from the night before supper or a couple days before, but for some reason this week it seemed like we either had so much leftover that we wanted to make it for a full meal later on, or we didn't have enough leftover for the two of us. My pot of vegetable soup that was supposed to be lunch for us for several days ended up getting scorched on the stove top. My stove, that particular burner or eye of the stove, is not acting right, and so it was long gone way before we could catch it. So there went one of our lunch ideas right down the tube. So anyway, we're learning and we're finding out some other things that maybe we thought we had in good supply but didn't. Kevin did a grocery run for us and we spent right at our $20 limit. I think we were 7 cents over, but we're going to allow for that. We got a couple of fresh fruits that weren't needed, but yeah, we got them anyway because we love fresh Bartlett pears and fresh pineapple. And what else? We got some bananas and
bananas.
Milk.
Yeah.
I think those were the main things that we got this week. So not a lot of produce to make meals, but we do like our fresh fruits. So there you go. We could have replaced those with canned pears if we wanted to, but anyway, we splurged. So that's how our week's grocery run went. We've had some really good meals, and we want to fix a meal for you today that is available from our stored foods, our pantry. This video is going to be sort of backwards because we had an incident at the Homestead last night that totally transformed our menu plans and our videotaping plans. But the good thing was that we said to each other was that we had a backup. We had food already in storage that we could make a quick meal last night. So now last night's menu is the lunch menu for today. So here we go. Our plans for this video are to make salmon cakes or salmon patties and a green pea salad, and then for dessert to have some peach cobbler. Very easy recipe for the peach cobbler, but it is so delicious. This time I'd like to do a segment on making green pea salad. This is something that Kevin and I enjoy eating, and so simple, really no measuring. And it's great to have on hand, especially since we have a good supply of eggs this time of year for us. And so we can make this up and have it available as a side item. I think that green peas go very well with fish dishes. And so here we go. This is going to be easy. You're not going to be impressed, I'm afraid. For these ingredients, we're going to use really 3 things. A can of green peas. They call them sweet peas in this can, some boiled eggs, and some mayonnaise. So here we go. I'll open the can of green peas. I like to sometimes leave, if I'm going to be draining or straining, I like to leave the lid on the can just a little bit. It's amazing how much liquid there is in there. I'll save this for our pigs, or maybe for another pot of vegetable soup, if I can do trial number 2 for vegetable soup this week. Well, it still keeps leaking. It doesn't matter if some of the liquid gets in here. So there's our can of green peas. I've added a pretty good sized dollop of mayonnaise. If you use salad dressing and prefer that, I suppose you could do that. We're mayonnaise people around here rather than Miracle Whip people. Then since we have a whole bunch of eggs at this time of year, and that adds some protein to our meals, I'm going to put in 2 boiled eggs. Now we have found on the Homestead that fresh eggs don't peel as well, or as neatly and easily as your older eggs that you might buy in the store. But this is a technique that I learned a few years ago. If you get it started, then you can put a spoon, just a regular tablespoon, teaspoon I guess that would be, under the edge of the membrane in there, and they peel much easier than trying to pick off all the tiny little pieces. So there's my tip for the day. This did pretty well on the side that I was using the spoon on. And then I'm just going to cut this into small pieces. Your real cooking people would tell you never cut towards your hand, but I think I'm going to be safe enough with this. You can tell I boiled these last night. They've got some gray to the inside of the yolk, but it still tastes the same. Okay, here comes the complicated part for the recipe. We're going to stir this together. Not really. Kevin's already chuckling. He doesn't think that's so complicated. But anyway, there's your pea salad. We like to refrigerate it. If I'm in a pinch and I think of this idea too late in the day, sometimes I even put my can of peas in the freezer for a little while to get them cooled off, so that by the time I boil the eggs and get them to a cooled temperature, I've got all my ingredients ready for my pea salad. So there you go. There's one of our side items for our pantry meal. Our main entree, that sounds so fancy when we're using our pantry food, but anyway, the main entree is a salmon cake. This is a kind of a recipe that you don't really have to measure for. You just do it till it seems like it's the right consistency. So the ingredients for this, we will be using a can of salmon. This was the Aldi brand, and I will open it in just a moment. And for this, usually I would use the smaller cans. I call them the tuna fish size cans. But we use those when we're making salmon salad sandwiches, one of Kevin's favorites. He puts some egg in there, makes it sort of like a tuna sandwich, and so that works out well for him. This size is probably bigger than what I need for just the two of us, but whatever's left over, we can have for lunches next week, and that'll take care of some of our what for lunch kind of questions. I picked some green onions, and I will chop those up. I have an egg to bind this with. I'm going to fry them in canola oil. That just happens to be what we had here. Any kind of vegetable oil, I suppose. If you've got lots of yummy bacon grease, you could do it in that. I probably wouldn't go that route. I like to save my bacon grease for the important stuff. And then I have bunches of bread scraps. These are not molded, but they probably just got dried out in the freezer. We like to get the day-old bread, especially French bread or Italian bread from our Walmart store. And so that we just throw those in the freezer, save some money, and we've always got something available to make garlic toast or something like that. In this case, I will crumple up these dried bread pieces and make them as a part of our salmon patties. That'll be the filler that goes into them. And then the other thing will be an egg to sort of bind it together. Not too hard. You could put other spices in, but right now I'm just going with what I've got available right now. So let's get started. I like to say I'm giving my green onions a haircut, just cutting them up with some scissors. Could cut them with a knife, I'm sure, just as well. Trying to get some pretty small pieces without cutting my fingers, so that we just have the flavor, but not big old chunks. I am going to add to my salmon, I'm going to break this up with a fork, I went ahead and left the liquid from the can in here. That'll give us a little bit of liquid for our breadcrumbs, bread chunks to soak up. And I don't know that you need to measure. This just looked like a good amount of green onion yesterday. In the past, I've also used minced onion. These came from our garden on the front porch. So anyway, they are growing out there still through the winter. But otherwise, I could use the jar of minced onion, or you could do chunks of fresh onion if that's something you have. This is 1 egg beaten, and that'll just sort of hold it together. And then I broke our bread up into pieces, and I'm going to try to shred this into smaller pieces, and then just keep stirring it up until it seems to be a consistency that I can roll or pat into patties. So let's see what we've got here. It really extends the meat. If you call the salmon your meat, it really makes it go to serve a lot more people than just going by the weight of that meat itself in the can. So I would think this would make 4, 6 servings, depending on how hungry everybody was. And it looks like that's a consistency that probably I can make into patties. So I'm going to set this aside for now, and we'll see what happens if this will make up. I like to just smash these into a nice flat size patty so that it will cook through. I like to get a nice crispy crunch on the outside, but I do like it to be cooked through on the inside. After I get this put together, I'm just tossing it in these Italian breadcrumbs. Here we go for patty number 2. And probably we'll come up with, I'd say, maybe 8 patties out of this. That makes for a very nice lunch for us today, since we ended up doing this on the noon hour instead of the supper hour that we planned. Oops, see, that happens to me sometimes. I just reform it, and this one will have extra Italian breadcrumbs flavoring. Must not have had it quite pattied out enough. So we'll get these made up and put them into the frying pan. Here is our finished product for our pantry cooking challenge today. We have our salmon cakes, started to say crab cakes. These are nice and crispy on the outside, but tender on the inside. I did put them on some paper towels to drain any extra grease out. And for how long I cooked them, it all sort of depends on how hot your skillet and oil were. Here is our green pea salad. Here are our collard greens. This time I chose to season them with some bacon grease that we had here from past cookings. And then we've got a nice juicy red tomato out of our garden. So excited that we're still getting tomatoes out of the garden. I hope these were good ideas, maybe something that you can make out of your food storage items, or that you can plan to put into your food storage for a time when you want to make similar recipes in the future. It is just so rewarding to us, I guess maybe is a good word, to have food available that we can make up a meal without having to go to the store. And this is really saving us money on our grocery budget this month too. Please give us some comments, give us some ideas of what you're cooking, what you're finding when you try to eat from your food storage, your pantry. And we look forward to seeing you next time here on Hideaway Homestead. Hope to have another update video on the Pantry Challenge, at least within a week. Thanks for all of you who've been joining along with us. We so appreciate your interest and your participation in our channel. Please give us comments. Thanks a bunch. Until next time.